Hey there folks, time to add another tree to the video series. I'm in a location called Spring Farm, which is in Camden local government area, southwestern Sydney. Spring Farm is sort of a urban area over that way, northish, which is sort of had a lot of new housing development in the last 10, 20 years or so. It was an old agricultural area. And what's incredibly interesting about this general area is we've got vegetation like Cumberland Plain woodlands just over there pretty much. It goes on to really strong clay soil and you get your typical Cumberland Plain woodland trees. But sort of over back this way, westwards, we get a sand deposit. Unbelievably, you get this sandy soil. I'm just going to demonstrate it here. I'm sort of right on the boundary of the clay soil and the sandy soil. Just do some monitoring here every year. And that monitoring's for what we call Elderslie Banksia scrub forest. There's a sort of younger sand deposit here. The Nepean River is just about 200 metres down that way. You can stand above the Nepean. It's pretty weedy and degraded, but the Nepean River is just down there. And you get a sand deposit with Elderslie Banksia scrub, and you get Banksia integrifolia. That's here. Growing as a mid-story species. It's not right here where I am, but it's just a couple of 100 metres that way, and there's some more over there as well. So yeah, Banksia integrifolia, growing in this inner part of sort of well and truly away from the coast in southwestern Sydney. You get trees with the Banksia of Eucalyptus botryoides, and the other tree you get is this one here. This is the broad-leafed apple, Angophora subvelutina. It's a tree that's very strongly associated with the Hawkesbury Nepean floodplains. It's a good spot to pick them up on these sandy soils. They've got a really beautiful architectural form. When you sort of see them, you just look at how beautifully architectural they are. They've just got a really nice form to them, and there are some big ones and I reckon some old ones in this Spring Farm area. Quite beautiful. The thing about Angophora subvelutina that sort of differentiates it from Angophora floribunda, I'll just go back over to this one to demonstrate it. They've sort of got a more deeply furrowed bark. Just a little bit more deeply furrowed. They do look like Angophora floribunda on the main, but you can see this bark is sort of really furrowed. This is almost iron bark, this here. It pretty much almost is. It's corky, but it's got a sort of real iron bark texture to it, and I can't pull much of it off. You can get those little spongy bits here. But just, yeah, much more deeply furrowed than the typical Angophora floribunda. And you can see them going up there. I did say that sometimes you get Angophora floribunda and you just got to check it's not an iron bark. If you've got iron barks like paniculata growing with it, you've just got to check that out. But it's the branches and the leaves of this guy that sort of give it away. The sort of undulating, contorted Angophora branches that, as we understand, gave them the name of sort of apples. Being an Angophora, we probably don't have to go into a massive amount of detail with the features, but what subvelutina is known for is these sessile leaves with these cordate bases hugging the stems. And as far as I can read, they're allowed to have petioles up to about 2 mil long. Otherwise, they're sessile. They're well and truly sessile. So you can see they're opposite or sub-opposite. They're just coming in below each other on the stem. But check the way they're hugging the stem there. Completely sessile. And otherwise, they've got those similar features to Angophora floribunda. And I've seen some trees around here which I think are Angophora floribunda, but over the years of monitoring, I've sort of changed my mind a bit. One year I call them floribunda, and then I go back to subvelutina. But on this sandy soil near the Nepean, this Eldersley Banksia scrub, it's meant to be more subvelutina, but floribunda can rock up anywhere. That's what I said in my video, and that's what we find. Discolorous leaves, you can see there, and they do have that nice what they call penny veined venation again as well. Just going to try and, that's as far as I can get, but like Angophora floribunda, they got that beautiful strongly reticulate venation and those sort of perpendicular to the mid-vein series of parallel veins linked by all that fine reticulum. It's a really nice feature of these Angophoras, and just note how discolorous they are. They're not overly thin, but again, they're not overly thick either. Maybe Angophora floribunda is a bit more papery feeling. The thing about these leaves is subvelutina means sort of velvety, like it's below sort of, you know, a full-on velvet texture. They do have a velvety texture. It's sort of a bit sort of hairy, felty. It's sort of nice to touch and rub through your hands. So subvelutina, I think it sort of means it's just a little bit below a velvet sort of feel, and that's what I'm getting here. Yeah, it does have a bit of a nice felty feel to it. So that's one of the other features. That's probably due to a lot of fine hairs, I would imagine, on the underside. I just can't see that with the naked eye and in this early morning light, but it does have a nice texture. But they're not overly thin. I wouldn't call them papery thin. There's just a little bit of thickness there. But you can just see this regular sessile leaves. This one's even going what we call decussate, where is one pair of leaves is orientated at a 90-degree angle to the next pair of leaves. That's what we call a decussate leaf arrangement, where each pair is sort of twisted at a right angle to the next pair. Plants like Pimelia, and if you know Hebe, the exotic, they do really good examples of decussate leaf arrangements. So you can get pedioles to 2 mil long, but they're meant to be pretty much sessile most of the time. So I'm not going to get any buds, I don't think. And I'm never here at the time of year where these guys are flowering. But in all my work, this is the best location where I know to sort of pick them up from and have a good look. Just an indication of the fruits. Nothing really surprising or different. They're very Angophora floribunda-like. These are old ones, of course, hanging on the terminals of, it's an old branch here. But your typical Angophora fruits, as you can see, with the ribs and the teeth. Once again, they got a bit of a cardboard sort of woody texture. I can crush them easily with my fingers. I can crush them up, no problem at all. You can see that there. So that's a feature with Angophora a lot of the time. I want to try and get some better ones than this, but if you got the fruits of subvelutina and the fruits of floribunda, you wouldn't be able to tell them apart, I wouldn't think. I think the pedicels are described as being up to 30 mil long for both. So the pedicels can be up to 30 mil long. That doesn't really help. I don't think there's a lot of difference there, but similar thing, terminal. I'll just try and see if I can find some better ones, but that's the general shape and appearance. Just demonstrating, again, you know, the Cumberland Plain woodland is just over that way with, you know, your typical Cumberland Plain woodland trees, Pterodocornis, Mollucana, Crebra. But look at this soil on this track. It's total sand, complete sand. Just a real transition zone between the Elderslie Banksia scrub that's sort of on these higher sandy rises, burying the shale soil, you would assume, being a younger deposit. Yeah, just quite incredible. That's almost like beach sand I'm walking on there. And there's Angophora subvelutina. Just young trees and old trees all through here. There's been a sort of accidental fire through here in the last year. It was caused by an electrical fault, apparently, from a nearby power line. But just the Angophora subvelutina here, it's just the most unbelievable tree. This is what they can do in their full grandeur. Just incredible. It's got some really big hollows as well. It's got some really prime real estate for nesting birds. I won't be able to give you a sense of this trunk, but it's about 1.50 meters across, just with my naked eye. If you took in that secondary limb there, it would hit 2 meters. Yeah, this is like 2 meters across, this trunk. Quite incredible. Pretty intense fire. They reckon it spread pretty quickly. But that's the canopy. Just absolutely amazing. Such a beautiful tree. It's just so, I keep saying it's just so architectural. It'd be a really nice feature tree in a big open lawn. Or, you know, botanic garden or something like that. And this poor guy just looks down onto all this sort of relatively new urban development and probably thinks about all its lost siblings, I would imagine. Yeah, really sad. This would be one of the biggest ones around. Just incredible. They said some scorching up to about 10 meters up. And the hollows in it, I can count about 5 hollows in this tree. Just amazing. Just got some fruit off a fresh tree, a small sapling here, just to try and finish off. So you can see they go nice and green when they're in the ripe stage. And it's still holding the seed in that particular case. Just not coming out yet. Maybe we can see the valves there that are gonna open and let the seed out. But that's typically what they look like. Oh, an Angophora subvelutina. Still got the sessile leaves. I'm in a different spot now. But still got the sessile leaves here. And just a terminal fruit. So remember with your Angophoras, just look for these guys straight away. As soon as you see them, normally helps a lot to tell you got an Angophora. And then you just got to work out which one of the, 10 to 13 species it is. So, normally nice and easy. I haven't observed these guys in flower. I'll have to try and get flowers at some stage. Just not here at the right time of year. Angophora subvelutina, it's got a pretty large geographic range. It goes south down the New South Wales coast to about the Nowra area, but there's also some records further down around a place called Araluen, which I think is west of Maruya. I think there's a pretty hectic road you can drive from Maruya to Araluen. So they're sort of saying they're the southernmost records. And then it's a New South Wales, Queensland tree. It sort of goes up through the tablelands and coast of New South Wales. And it doesn't quite go as far inland as Floribunda. But it's probably another case where there's probably intermingling of Floribunda subvelutina records, possibly. But it goes out as far west as sort of Armidale, Tamworth, that area, possibly Inverell. I think Angophora floribunda goes out a bit further west. And then it punches through up into Queensland, sort of along the same sort of longitudinal sort of line. And it goes up to around Bundaberg. So as far as Bundaberg in Queensland, or west of, it sort of goes as far as that. But that's intermingled with all the Angophora floribunda range as well. Although Angophora floribunda a little bit further west and a lot further south as well. But that's subvelutina, yeah, just restricted to New South Wales and Queensland. And they grow to about 20 metres tall. That's the probably biggest ones you're going to get. So just look for those sessile leaves. In this part of Sydney, especially around the Hawkesbury Nepean. Anywhere around the Hawkesbury Nepean floodplains and that in southwestern, western, northwestern Sydney, you should be able to pick it up. Alrighty, hope you enjoyed that one.